The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It is also the home for Autism Live. We're thrilled to be here with you on this Wednesday morning. We got a big show planned for you. In our first hour, we are welcoming Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet. She's here with us live in the studio. I know that you guys love to hear that, and you can be writing in your questions right now on the live feature. In fact, there are a lot of ways to get in touch with us here. I'm going to have Samantha show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us, while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, lots of things to do. Click on the triangle that's on the computer screen to start the live show playing. Or if you want to go, it will show you the most recently recorded show. Or if you want to go back in time, go to the memo tab up in the upper left-hand corner, and you can watch the 100 most recent shows that we've done here. You can fast forward, pause, rewind, so on and so forth. Now, to the side of all that is what we call the live feature. If you put your cursor in the box that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter. That's it. You don't have to log in. There's no username, no password. There's none of those crazy letters that prove that you're a bot or not a bot, I guess is what it proves. There's none of that. That's the nice thing. You don't have to have a credit card. It's entirely free. We don't even get to know where you are, in fact. So when you're writing in your questions, we do encourage you to be as specific as you possibly can. Tell us where in the world you are, because all resources are not the same in all places, and that will help us to be able to effectively answer your question. I also want to say that in the second hour today, during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, it will be just me. We'll talk more about that later. But my special guest today will be Vince Redmond, licensed marriage and family therapist. Amazing. He's going to be talking with us about, yeah, I know, believe it, it's already happening, getting ready for summer. How we can be taking steps right now to supercharge our summer to get the most done, and to have some fun, and to get some relaxation in. Doesn't that sound good? So he'll be with us to talk about that. And then we have Debbie Major from Xylophone. It's a music program that I think is going to be really interesting for everyone, talking about combining music and the arts and autism, one of our favorite things. And we'll also do a recap of our time on the red carpet this weekend at AutFest. What an amazing time we had, and we'll do a little recap on that as well. All that's coming up in the second hour. But right now, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grant-Pichet.
Dr. Grant-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is here with us live in the studio answering your questions. Welcome. We love it.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
I always like to say to people, we get you whenever we possibly can, and we appreciate when we can't, because there are other things that you have to do and other places that you have to be.
Thank you so much.
And I know everybody goes, oh, when we don't get to have you, but it's just that much more thrilling when we do get to have you. For people who don't know, you are a true expert in the field of autism.
Thank you very much.
And more than that, a visionary in the field of autism. You see things coming before they come, and you help all of us to be able to find the things that we need to find. And you donate this hour to answer people's questions all around the world. It's an amazing, amazing thing. We do like to remind everybody at the start of the show, though, that there is no expert in any field, but especially in this field, that can give individual specific advice in this particular format, right? So you send in your questions, be as specific as possible, and Dr. Granpichet is going to give you some information based on the wealth of knowledge that she has that will be general in nature, not specific to the person that you're asking about. But we have seen, and you guys have written in so many times and said how helpful this is, because it helps you to make decisions about what step to take next, or to know what question to ask when you go to the expert who actually has eyes on the case.
Right.
So we thank you for writing in your questions. I want to jump to some questions that have come in earlier today. The first one, hello Shannon and Dr. Doreen, hope you answer my question. Yesterday, I got a call from my son's school nurse telling me I had to go pick up my son and take him to the emergency room because he swallowed a nickel. They said he was working on money with his aide and he was angry because he didn't want to do the work, so he put the nickel in his mouth and swallowed it. I took him to the ER and he had an x-ray done. It showed the nickel was in his stomach. The doctor said I shouldn't worry because he would poop it out. I'm so upset and worried for my son. This is a school in New Jersey and it's a special needs school. And my son has his own aide who obviously is not fit to work with kids on the spectrum like my son. What should I do? I want to change him to a new school because I'm really scared now to send him there. Plus, they know nothing about ABA, even though they have a BCBA in the building. Please advise me and what I can do. Please, I'm desperate. I just want to keep him home with me. And she also wanted to know, would this affect his IEP if I keep him home until I find another school? Please help and thank you in advance. And it's a lot.
Tough situation, yeah.
And there's also, I just want to say, you know, I understand as a fellow autism mom that when we take our kids to school, it's a feeling of a loss of control, that they're there and we just hope and pray that they are safe. And when anything happens that challenges that, we go and on the alert, and it feels like the worst possible thing is happening in that moment. I get it. I totally get it.
Absolutely.
But I'd love to hear from you about
well,
about
first
this
of all,
particular
I mean, it's just hard to advise you because New Jersey is a difficult state, first of all. I don't know exactly how it would impact your IEP. First, I'll be straight out and tell you that. That's a legal question, and every state is a little bit different, and every district interprets that a little bit differently. I don't know if you can just pull him out and keep him. How old is he? Do we know?
I believe she said 7, or am I making that up?
Yeah,
I don't actually know. I
is.
don't think it says.
No, so that also has something to do with it as well. So unfortunately, I can't answer that portion of the question. But overall, what I want to say is that, you know, it is, I don't know the functioning level of your child, and I don't want to imagine what could have happened. I don't know if this was an aide who was just looking away and doing something else, or was actually engaged with your child, and this was simply an accident that was unavoidable from her perspective. I don't know any of that. But as Shannon said, sometimes we want, you know, we have expectations of the people around us, and it's really important to make sure that they are trained well. But what I'm saying, I suppose, is that keep in mind that even if someone is trained well, this type of thing could potentially happen. It can happen that the child is just angry, throwing a tantrum, takes the nickel, puts it in their mouth, and beyond that, then the aide, I'm not sure what else they could have done, you know? So we don't know one way or another for sure. You probably know a little bit better because you probably know this aide, you probably know what kind of training they've had. Now, the biggest portion of what you wrote that's disturbing is that there is actually a BCBA and that none of the aides have had any kind of ABA training. That is sort of a sad thing, and I can completely understand, and I encourage you to find a program that not only has ABA training, not just a program where, like, let's say the aides and teachers are trained in ABA, but try to get a one-to-one ABA person for your child so that even if they're in school, they're actually using techniques of ABA to work with your child. And that's kind of what we've done for years and years in California, and in many other states as well, New York, where we actually have therapists who are fully trained and they're funded by the school, and they work with the children in school, in the classroom, outside of the classroom, etc. Now, you know, I don't want to, I always give this sort of lecture again. I know nothing about your child's functioning or age, but make sure that one of the things that you do is also to prioritize the importance of various lessons. Now, working on money might be important if your child is at a certain functioning level and able to go out and use that skill for some, like buying something or paying, etc. But don't necessarily just work on a particular skill if it's what's expected of the class. Like, I think with our kids, it becomes really important that we be very selective about the things that they're spending their time learning. So I always encourage parents to prioritize. Think of the fact that, you know, you have millions of things to teach the child and you have a limited amount of time, and use that time very wisely and make sure that you have quality therapists, of course, but also you're teaching useful things. So, you know, I mean, I'm sorry it's not that helpful, but it's very hard. The other thing also is, by the way, if you leave your child here until you find another placement or call for an emergency IEP, that's what I would do. I would leave my child there and call for an emergency IEP. Know that because this event happened, everyone's going to be super cautious for a while, so they're going to be very, very careful and on their best behavior. So I would say it's even a safer environment right now.
It's funny, just as you were saying that, I was thinking, boy, that's so true, that this, you know, you could have gone to school the whole last 3 months and said, I want my aide trained in ABA, and they would be like, But now, and believe me, nobody would have ever wanted your child to swallow a nickel, and I was just imagining me in the emergency room flipping out because your child has swallowed, you know, and all the x-rays and everything. Nobody would want that. But you can now parlay this into a huge gift for you and for your child, because now, you know, it's documented that he swallowed a nickel under her care, and you can go in, and if you go in and very calmly say to them, and now you are going to get either this aide or somebody else ABA trained, because in the event that some other thing were to happen, they, you know, this is the prior warning. This would be a nightmare for them.
Absolutely.
So this, you have a whole bunch of power now because of this. Think very clearly about what you want. Get it, you know, even write it out, go in, say, I want to speak to whoever is in charge. Let's do the emergency IEP. Here's what you're going to do now as a result to ensure because if he can swallow a nickel, what else can happen? So we're going to nip this now. You probably can make your biggest wishes come true.
Absolutely.
And if it's that you want ABA training, I think they will give that to you now.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
And you may look back on this and go, this was a watershed moment. Nobody wanted it, but since this is what happened, now they're going to have to do what's right.
Definitely.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Will you do me a favor and write us back and let us know how that goes? And because your child being safe, number one. I get it.
Definitely.
I get it. Okay. Another person wrote in and said, any suggestions for weaning a 4-year-old off of a bottle? He throws huge tantrums and hits the refrigerator when I don't give it to him, and thanks.
Right. So, you know, I guess I have 2 answers for you, and hopefully they're both useful. So the first thing is, yes, there are some things you can do, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do them in a minute. But before I do that, I want to make sure that you realize that his huge tantrum and hitting the refrigerator is allowing him. It's a behavior. It's something he does because he's saying, if he could talk and get his way by talking, he would say, I really want my bottle. Now, there isn't a single child who has a bottle who willingly gives it up. Everybody wants their bottle. Once they're on a bottle, it's a weaning procedure, and we'll talk about the weaning procedure in a minute. But as long as your child throws a tantrum or hits the refrigerator and you give him the bottle, you are teaching him that throwing a tantrum and hitting a refrigerator is an effective way to communicate. So, like everything else, If I was to say, can I have that bottle? And you gave me the bottle, I would learn that the words, can I have that bottle, were effective. It was a useful way of communicating. Now, if I can't do that, and I hit you, or I hit myself, or I throw a massive tantrum, or I pound on the refrigerator, and someone sees that and panics and hands me the bottle, I have now learned that doing all those behaviors are an effective way to getting the bottle. So the very first thing you must do is stop reacting when he has a tantrum or hits the refrigerator. It's okay. He will not hit himself to the point where he's going to injure himself. In fact, if you're not there, most likely he won't hit himself. If you don't look at it, most likely he won't throw a massive tantrum. The tantrum and the hitting the refrigerator are just an objective. Are just his way of saying, I'm really frustrated. But so what? So let him do that, and then he will calm down. And if you don't react to that, you can also stand in front of the refrigerator so he doesn't hit it. You can let him do the tantrum and get it over with. And what you do is instead you give him the bottle if he asks for it. And so this could be a nonverbal child, and it could be possible for him not to be able to ask. So you make it very easy for him to ask. For instance, you have a picture of a bottle, and he gets his bottle when he touches the picture, for example. So with every behavior, when it's a challenging behavior that's being used for communication purposes, you make sure that the child doesn't get their way when they do that behavior, but they do get what they want when they request it appropriately. And that's a really important thing in ABA. That's how we change behavior. We teach individuals that this particular behavior is not effective in getting what you want. Now, he's on a bottle. Let's assume you've given him the bottle. Your question is more, how do I wean him off? And this is appropriate for any child. So you just take the bottle, and instead of, how the thing at the top, the nook or the little pacifier section has one hole in it, you will poke another hole in it and give it to him. And then like a day later, you'll poke a third hole in it and you'll give it to him. And very, very gradually over the course of, let's say, 2 weeks, you will now start cutting little pieces off of the pacifier section so that it produces a hole. The whole thing about a bottle, there's two reasons that a child might want a bottle. One is what's in it, and one is the sensation of sucking, which is sort of calming and peaceful. This is a 4-year-old. So basically, as you increase the hole size, usually what happens with our kids is that they no longer enjoy the sucking. And so it becomes, and you just keep increasing it, and it becomes very much like drinking. And then once it starts to become like drinking, you switch over to a sippy cup. And again, once you remove the bottle, if he tantrums, it doesn't matter. You just offer him the sippy cup. That's that, and you move away. The other side of it is that what's in the bottle could be something that he's like extremely into and he wants it. What you do is you start reducing so you will mix it. Let's say it's formula or milk or juice or whatever it is. You start watering that down and you start reducing the amount, whereas in the sippy cup, you give him the pure form. So in the sippy cup, you give him real juice or real milk, but in the bottle, you're giving him watered down milk or watered down juice. So you essentially, over time, you make it so that the bottle can't compete with the sippy cup. Right. The sippy cup is so much better. And the bottle is now also resembling the sippy cup in terms of its suction factor.
That's brilliant. And I have to say for parents, because we always have to be reminded that going slow, like doing one hole at a time, that think about daylight savings time, that every single day, where the sun changes, at which time it goes down, it changes by like between a half a minute and a minute and a half every single day.
Yeah.
And we don't notice it. We don't notice it at all.
So true.
Until daylight savings comes, and then we move it by an hour, and everybody's freaked out for an entire week.
Yeah.
Like you can't find your keys, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's daylight savings. I'm awake, I'm asleep, and it's just 57 more minutes. That's the difference between going slow and going quick.
Yeah.
So the poke in the hole is the just like the sun changes every day by a minute and we don't notice.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
brilliant though.
Yeah,
I
no,
love
thanks.
that. It's almost evil. It's so brilliant,
It's
right?
just anything. So that allows you to kind of avoid the confrontation. Like,
Yeah.
You just go slowly, and the child will give it up himself.
Child doesn't notice.
Same thing when
Amazing.
people often ask me, like one of the other things is like kids who are really attached to a blanket.
Yeah.
So what we would do is just start cutting it up. Like
Yeah.
start making it smaller, smaller. I
Just
remember
littler and littler.
I remember with one of our kids years and years ago, literally his huge blanket had turned into this, and then
Right.
he would put it in his pocket and he was fine.
Right.
It was such a
But it
cute
works,
transition.
and
Oh, yeah.
that's the point. But you have to do it at such a slow rate that they don't notice. If you do it big enough that they do notice,
Then
then
it starts
you've
to
gone
really,
too
yeah.
far.
Mhm.
Yeah, then you get into the whole thing. I absolutely love it. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. We've got questions that are coming in that I want to deal with. The next one that I want to deal with is about a pediatrician appointment that's coming up soon, and whether or not they should push for diagnosis or advice about when they say, let's wait 3 to 6 months to reevaluate.
Right.
So stick with us. And for the person who just turned 3 today, we're going to get to your question right after that. So stick with us right back after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of May, I thought it'd be really neat if we made our own bird feeders. What's cool about it is once it's done and it's hung in your front yard, backyard, balcony, or whatever outdoor area that you have, your kids will be able to observe the bird feeder and tap when they see birds coming over and feeding from it. Like, oh my gosh, oh, so exciting. Do you see that? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm just so excited about all the different birds I've been seeing now that I have a bird feeder hanging outside. Anywho, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2.5 cups of birdseed, half a cup of boiling water, 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, a spatula, twine, scissors, wax paper, and cookie cutters. Alright, now that I got your materials, it's super easy. I have my boiling hot half cup of water, and I'm going to take my 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, and I'm going to pour them in and stir it. The reason I pour it in the water first all by itself is to make sure that the gelatin dilutes really well, and I can stir it up real nicely. Now that it's been all stirred together, I'm going to take this liquid and pour it into the birdseed, making sure to scrape up all the gelatin that we diluted. Now I'm just going to stir it all up. Okay, now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to take my wax paper and put it on my table, just so I don't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my cookie cutter and lay it down. I'm also going to take a piece of string and cut it, about 6 inches long. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the cookie cutter halfway full with our birdseed mixture. And I'm going to take my string, fold it in half, I'm going to place it in the center. This way you can hang this up once it's done and dry. Okay, now that it's full, I'm just going to pack it in. So now that this is all compacted, it's going to take about 6 hours for the gelatin to get completely hard. If you take it out too soon, the whole thing's going to fall apart. So let's wait a little bit, and I'll see you guys in a few moments. All right, it's been 6 hours now, so let's see if this little guy worked out. So I'm just going to pull him up and pop him out, okay? And here's my finished bird feeder. All you have to do now is hang it outside and wait for all the great things you're gonna see. Like, oh, I see another bird. This is so exciting. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the activity and keep me up to date with all the different birds that you and your child see outside your property. Until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Inclusion is everything. Feeling like we have a place where we belong, and when I say we, I'm first and foremost a mother of a child on the spectrum and gym owner and now founder of carrying this to families who need it as well.
My son is extremely hyperactive. Getting him to calm down is a very difficult task. So the idea of Rock the Spectrum Gym, where he could just go and run and play and do all these fun things without any kind of worries and just go, go, go and bring down that energy, it helps us so much at home. You know, in the home or at school, it's not acceptable, but this is the one place it is acceptable for the child to kind of be themselves and get it all out there and just really just be themselves.
It's an amazing place where my son could go and be himself. You get to meet other parents who are in the same journey as you are.
I think the most popular aspect of it is how they include all children of all types, not just only learning disabled, lower functioning, moderate functioning, high functioning, and non-disabled.
People there are so friendly. Everybody's like family. They always greet you with a smile. There's not one negative thing I could say about any of the employees. They're all absolutely amazing. I think every parent should walk in through those doors and see what an amazing gym it is.
Now a diagnosis being 1 out of 6 kids are in some way or form affected with sensory processing disorder or autism. That's why We Rock Now is on the rise. People want to be a part of it. People know that they have a community there. They know that they can learn more information about things that they don't know themselves or that they can share, build friendships, and basically get what you get in an OT facility, but it's not $150 an hour. It's $12.
Welcome back. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet, and she is answering your questions in real time. I promised that we would go to a question that we had. I'm trying to think which question I promised first.
Oh, we're just going to deal with the 2 live ones. One is the doctor one.
The doctor one.
Okay.
That was the one that I wanted to go to next, but hang on, it's coming up.
Sure.
I've got 2 iPads and I lost my mind completely.
Yeah.
My daughter is almost 3 and we have our developmental pediatrician appointment coming up soon. How can we avoid them just prescribing early intervention first, then reevaluating after 3 or 6 months? She needs help now and we don't want to wait for a diagnosis.
So let's be really clear on the possible things that might be happening here. And it's really important because in different states, early intervention means different things, and to different people, it has started to take on different meaning. So early intervention, when you say that to us, it means early intensive behavioral intervention, EIBI, which is ABA at its purest form, best form, and it's for young children who have already been diagnosed. If it's early intervention and it's said by a state or a physician, most likely it's not pure ABA, and it's just sort of like intensive. It's not really even intensive. It's a few hours of trying to teach the child various things. And the reason they do that prior to diagnosis is that they're trying to actually reduce the symptoms to the point where you might not even get a diagnosis after 6 months. So what I would suggest that you do is you go to the pediatrician for the checkup and you go prepared. So you can download from online, just Google symptoms of autism, and you'll get a diagnostic checklist. It's called the DSM-5 diagnosis symptoms is what I would put in, diagnostic symptoms of autism, DSM-5, and you'll get it's a checklist, and you basically will look at those realistically, and if you feel your child exhibits those symptoms, it's really simple, then you have good cause to go to the pediatrician, take that with you and say, look, my child is doing this, this, and this, and I'm pretty sure he's doing this, so this is why I'm worried that it might be autism, and I need you to please give me a diagnosis one way or another now, because I need the diagnosis in order to get ABA from my health insurance. That's the path that you should be going. You should get, if you want to get coverage or pay from your medical insurance, your health insurance, you will not get it without a diagnosis of autism. So you need to get that diagnosis in place. In fact, but I mean, other types of disorders will get some form of treatment as well, but the diagnosis is what they need before any kind of intervention actually occurs. And I highly recommend, no matter what the age of your child, that you do go after health insurance. It's a lot less restricted, like you will have unlimited coverage, which is way better than usually what you get from state type programs. It's just 5 hours, 10 hours a week, or like, you know, we'll have a BCBA consult with you. That kind of stuff is not going to work. You need actual behavior technicians coming and sitting and working with your child one-on-one and doing intensive work. If you get the diagnosis, the sooner the better, because you are, you know, the ages 2 and 3, the brain is very malleable and can learn a lot, and there's a lot to teach. So that's what I would do. If you get the runaround, go to another pediatrician, go to a psychologist who specializes in autism. There are now more and more practices that are actually developing, that are specializing in the diagnosis of autism.
Okay, I want to quickly pivot to Gerald has written into us on Facebook, and he said, my kid just turned 3 today, and we want to say happy birthday. They are nonverbal, and they cannot yet walk on their own.
Okay.
He says, the biggest issue I have is that she hits herself in the face with slaps and punches. I think she usually does this as a matter of pain control, as she has constipation issues often. I understand that she is in pain and her need to express it, but what can I do to stop her from hitting herself? I tell her no. She doesn't really understand the meaning. If I try to restrain her physically, she gets more upset. I usually try to find random things I think might distract her, but it's just so heartbreaking to see your child hit themselves.
Yes, it is.
We're sending you a hug.
So what I guess there's a few things. Immediately, I would try to just replace the punching of her face with punching something else. Like get her a punching bag. Like literally get her a punching bag and start, whenever she starts hitting her face, model for her how to punch something else. I'm not sure it will work, because if it is, you do your best to replace it. It's hard to find another activity that gives her the same sensory input as hitting herself. Now, if she is hitting herself, let's first make sure that the function of the hitting is pain, because that's a very hard thing to identify, right? Because she's only 3 and she can't tell you. So assuming that the hitting is pain, it is, and she's hitting herself because somehow that averts the pain, we need to really focus on the pain and why the pain is there. So have you seen a gastroenterologist? Are you dealing with the constipation? That is probably your number 1 goal, because you know a lot of gastroenterologists will give you medications like Miralax or whatever, so that she doesn't experience severe constipation. You also need to really be looking at her diet and determining what kind of diet will help her not have bloating and constipation. That is very, very important. Now, if she's a very picky eater, a behavior analyst, a BCBA, or a therapist can actually help with that. We do teach our kids to have a very broad diet, but it's important to identify what kind of diet will not cause her to have constipation. It's important to give her medication so that she overcomes the constipation. That's actually extremely important. The next question I have is, why can't she walk? What is leading to that? Because she's 3 years old, and if she has really severe gross motor issues, that's where you would be focused as well, secondarily. And you would be trying to get some physical therapy, occupational therapy, ABA people working on teaching her to walk. So that's another thing to look at, unless there's another physical ailment that I'm not aware of. The third area is she's nonverbal. So it is really important for us to teach her to vocalize or communicate in some way so that going forward she can express some of her pain and other things to you so that you can help. So I would start with a visual program of communication, which is usually a PECS program, Picture Exchange Communication System, or any kind of electronic, like Proloquo is a good program on the iPad. But essentially it's just teaching the child to identify labels, actions, and then gradually it becomes much, much more advanced, and then we start to teach things like identifying feelings, but and you know, sensations like pain. But I would say in order, I think, you know, immediately the only thing you can do right now is blocking of the hitting of the self. A lot of parents will use I don't know if you've seen those little hats that wrestlers put on. Like it's sort of not it's a half face mask even, and it's padded material. And it's not a bad idea to put that, because not only are you avoiding actually injury, she won't be able to injure herself, but over time she won't gain access to the sensation of hitting her face. So then it's likely she might replace it with a punching bag or some other thing that she can punch. As a, you know, so that's one way of stopping it. I would work on stopping it first. I would work on figuring out the gastrointestinal issues and the pain related to that, the constipation second. I would figure out why she's not walking and focus on that, and I would really focus on teaching communication.
Yeah, functional communication. Okay, great. And do us a favor and write us back in if you need more clarification or if there's more information that would help us. I want to move to a question that came in just now in the live feature. My 9-year-old son was taken off of the GFCF diet just to see how he would do. And she wrote in all caps, big mistake. His problem behaviors increased dramatically. He was having about 6 out of 7 days without problem behavior. He was having about 6 out of 7 days with problem behaviors that were really unsafe. Now we put him back on, and he has had 0 bad days until yesterday. Something happened at school where the teacher messaged me and said my son was overstimulated. He was covering his ears, running around, shaking bins, and then he took off all of his clothes and ran out in the hall. My question to them was, how was he able to undress and get out of the class fast enough? I don't expect him to have a good day every day, but how can I avoid this from happening again? When he gets older, he could possibly be expelled for running around the school naked. This is the first time he has ever done that, and I don't know what happened, and she gave us a sad face.
Understood. Now, so it's good that you have the GFCF under control, and that's great, and that see that as a contributing factor to our kids' irritability. That's how I see it. It's like our children get to a point where there's so much annoying them, and they have not learned how to communicate their annoyance well enough, or to tolerate it well enough, so they act out. Now, possibly when he was off the GFCF diet, he was experiencing various annoyances, and so as a result, maybe he had pain, maybe it was making him feel very cloudy or out of it, whatever it was, it was leading to increased behaviors. Okay, great. But there will be other things that will lead to behavior as well, challenging behavior as well. It won't be just dietary factors. So very clearly what happened to him in this scenario was that some sort of sound was irritating him, perhaps, if he's covering his ears. Something is happening where he's starting to lose his tolerance and his patience, right? And so then really the question becomes, does he have an aide? Does he have someone who's watching him? Because it does take a few minutes to completely undress, and why isn't anybody blocking him from after he takes off the first item of clothing? Why isn't anybody stopping him? So to some extent, before they get to blame you and expel him, you get to blame them, because it's their job to keep him safe and not allow him to get undressed and run into the hallway. So The real question is, hey, or what I would do is I would go to the school, I would call an emergency IEP, I would say, guys, it is clear from what happened the other day that you guys are not managing him well. It is really clear that he needs his own one-to-one. I'm assuming that he has like a classroom aide or something, but not his own one-to-one. If he does have a one-to-one, then you say it is clear the one-to-one needs more training. So before you start to be defensive, be a little offensive here and go to the school and say, I'm giving you my child during the day. It is your responsibility to take care of his needs. What happened here? Why did you not watch over him? Why did you not prevent him from getting undressed? Why are you not teaching him? Clearly, he needs also to have practice and learn these skills and so on. So you guys need to get on the ball and give me more resources here. So, you know, sometimes our kids will do whatever it takes to just clearly he has some sensory dysregulation issues, right? So he has auditory issues where sound might be bothering him. It's possible that he has sensory stuff, so he wanted to take off his clothes because it was bothering him. I don't know. You need a BCBA to come in, a behavior analyst to come in, and to start figuring out what the function was here. Why did he actually remove his clothes? It doesn't sound like a direct connection to auditory, right? If you're hearing sounds that are bothering you and he's doing this, I wouldn't make the immediate jump to now the next thing he will do is take his clothes off. So something provoked that or evoked that, and I don't know what that was. We'd have to identify what happened right before it, how did they consecrate it, what were the things that happened here, so we could identify if he was trying to get out of a situation, if he was trying to get out of like discomfort, if he was trying to gain access to something outside, if he was just trying to get attention. I don't know. There's lots of possibilities, and unless you figure that out, you won't be able to know exactly how to deal with it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you about going back in and saying you have not handled this.
Yeah,
a lot of times at school, it's like who points the finger first. Your child has a right to free appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment.
That's right.
Your child has already shown that he can make it work in the classroom, but something happened and he needed some more support. So it's incumbent upon you to go back in and ask for that more support. And if they start talking about moving his classroom, you say, no, he already proved he can do it. You just need more support there. Don't let them get you on the wrong side of that argument there. Okay, I want to move on to a question that has come in. Good morning, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I'm from India and now in the U.S. and have a 14-year-old son on the spectrum, and my husband would like to know if you think that hypnosis would be beneficial to him. He is verbal and may be in the middle of the spectrum, and she said thank you. And she said, thanks, Shannon, for this wonderful show, and thanks a lot to Dr. Doreen for her valuable time. We so appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
What do you think, hypnosis?
You know, so I don't know that people I just don't know enough about his functioning level. And also people have different levels of susceptibility to hypnosis. There's a very good test. I think it's called the Stanford test of hypnotizability or something like that. You can look it up. And it is a test, and it's a questionnaire. And you answer the questionnaire, and it establishes a value for how hypnotizable you are. There are some people who are instantly hypnotizable, and there are others who are not really hypnotizable. And so, you know, it's worth answering the questionnaire and seeing if it would in any way benefit him.
I'm sure that I am the most hypnotizable person. All you have to do is say, you know, like spiders, and I'm crawly, right? I'm the most suggestible person there is. All right, so interesting. We'll check that out. Somebody else says, hello, Dr. Doreen and Mrs. Shannon. Did you get to watch the Indian movie Barfi at the Autfest? This is from India. Your show is my lifeline. Thank you so much. Oh. And you know what? There were long days at the Autfest where we were starting at 9:30 in the morning, and we were done with interviews at about Barfi started, and so I already missed the beginning of it because we had to dismantle our stuff, and I know that I can get it online. So I left so that we could come back and do the second day. So I did not I heard it was magical. I heard that it was just absolutely beautiful. But we're planning on watching it as a family because you can get it online.
Oh, nice.
So I didn't get, but there were so many amazing films at AutFest. We are going to talk about that in the next hour. And then I do want to say that the mom that you were just talking about, the son with the GFCF diet, she said, "Thank you, Dr. Doreen. I will do that because a few months ago, they allowed him to run back into the building during a fire drill."
Yeah.
And she said, "So I will do that, and thank you very much." I'm so glad that you guys had an opportunity to talk, because that's just not going to work if they're letting him do that. Okay, we had 2 questions that came in about speech volume. One about a young woman on the spectrum who's getting ready to come back and have CARD program. She's an adult on the spectrum. The other one, they said, "Hello, my son is 16 years old and speaks constantly and pretty loudly from the time he wakes up to the time that he goes to bed. He's extremely smart and makes good grades in school. However, it's distracting to the other children in class. I'm afraid that it will hamper his efforts in college and afterwards, and I'm not sure what type of therapy he needs or what to do. He has a behavior therapist that comes to the house several days out of the week, but they do not seem to know what to do." For the young woman who's an adult, she has recently been doing a lot of press stuff because she has a business. And so she makes beautiful jewelry, and so she's been doing a lot of press, but it's a bit of an issue because she talks loudly, and so they're coming back to CARD to work on that and some other things. So
okay, so let's go one at a time.
Okay. I was lumping them together because they're both talking loudly, but I'm sure it's different.
Right. Well, this one is so is this one also talking loudly, and we want to reduce the volume?
Yes, in both cases, they're talking too loudly.
Oh, okay, interesting. Because I thought one has to do with, and I was like preparing to explain how to increase volume.
Yeah, but she clarified with me that she's talking too loudly, not that she's not talking loud enough. Talking too loudly.
Right. So so a couple of things. One is there are lots of different things you could do depending on the functioning level of the individual, because we tend to modify our volume based on usually based on the person's expression. We all have different different hearing abilities. Sometimes I notice with my kids when we're watching TV, I'm like, "Guys, turn it up. Like, I can't hear it." And they're like, "Fine." And also, of course, as you age, you lose the ability to hear certain sounds completely.
Oh, is that what's happening?
No, I mean, it is amazing that actually, and when I say when you age, but it's not even when you age, there are lots of sounds that you can only hear up to age 10. Which is really fascinating.
Well,
doesn't
that explain? No, I did not know this at all.
It's fascinating. So you can actually get apps that play with that, because they'll play a sound. It's like a little beep, and the young children will all be like, "Yeah, there it is," and none of us hear anything at all. It's a very fascinating experiment.
That's interesting for our kids too, because we see that. I mean, you look at Carly Fleischman, who wasn't able to communicate because it was all garbled sound.
Absolutely.
But then after she was 13, she could sort the sounds out. So maybe those sounds had filtered out.
100%. 100%.
Wig blown.
Yeah.
You
can't do that to me. It's gonna make me laugh all day.
Sorry. No, seriously, that's amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But because of that, when we speak, that's just one reason. And also aging. But when we speak to people or when we interact, if someone's like, "What?" Like, you'll speak up, or if they're like, you'll get the idea that you need to kind of modify your speech. And a lot of sound modification we learn, or volume modification we learn, it has nothing really to do with the ears, but it has to do with environmental factors. Like, for example,
that's social component.
It's a social component, exactly. So if you're in a library, everyone automatically starts to whisper, right? That's just an automatic social thing we've learned. If you're in a studio, you will keep it at a certain level. If you're in a room that echoes, you will lower your volume. There's certain things that we do. Just if someone is at a distance, you'll increase your volume. Like, there's a lot of things that we've learned about volume that is possible. Again, that's why I'm saying I don't know the level of functioning of these two individuals. you have to make sure that they're aware of all of those social things, right? So for instance, do they realize that, can they read body expression? Can they tell that they are being too loud? Are they being told that this is too loud? Modify it. If the person is able to reduce their volume, even momentarily, so if they're at the point where I say, that's too loud, could you say it softer, please? If they can do that, then it's just a matter of increasing the duration of speaking at a lower volume, right? And that is easy to do because that's just shaping. So that's like you start at a low volume, and as they start to increase, the person just, you practice with them, right? And you just keep going like this, and you keep going. You give them a hand gesture, and they'll start to gradually realize that the duration of time has to increase where they're maintaining a lower volume. So that, and then you remove the hand. So it's just a shaping procedure. If they actually can't understand what it means to speak at a lower volume, then what you have to do is increase their own auditory input. So what I would do is probably figure out a way where you have a very loud headphones on, so Bose or noise cancellation, some sort of headphone where they will hear their own sound going back in at a very high volume, and as they reduce it, you reduce the volume. So this has to be, this entry for them has to be uncomfortable with their normal volume. And so gradually what you do is they're going to want a lower volume, and they can control it by actually speaking lower. Okay. All you have to do is attach a microphone to Bose headphones. That's it. And usually if you actually do like those karaoke microphones or something, they're pretty loud. Like they can be very, very loud setting. Yeah. And then you teach them to whisper. Another thing you can do is to actually get very close to the individual, because as you get close to people, they realize that they can reduce their volume. And so whispering is the exact opposite, obviously, of loud volume. So teaching an individual to whisper will also help reduce the volume. So those are just some things. But keep in mind, for the person who's doing a lot of like TV shows and so on, it sounds like they probably are very high functioning or at the level where they can initially learn. It's just all the social cues they probably are not really realizing that it's disturbing to other people.
Okay. And I will say, you know, the Bose headphones and all that, not everybody can afford that. And I will tell you that
there's a lot of noise canceling.
The really inexpensive thing that they gave us at one point, they took PVC pipe and they just made like a U shape, so it looked like a phone out of PVC pipe, and would have him talk like he was on the phone.
That's fantastic.
And what it does is it sends the sound, and they can hear their volume.
That is the best.
So
that's the best.
And super, you know, maybe $3 worth of PVC pipe.
Fabulous idea. Remember, we used to do that kind of stuff with. Well, isn't there a game we used to play as kids with just like pipes, like the telephone game or something?
Yes, absolutely.
Any kind of pipe, I guess, that you could do this would be fantastic idea.
And the thing with the PVC pipe is that it actually, you know, because it's, I don't know, but it magnifies it a little bit. It
accentuates it for sure.
And I do want to say that, you know, you were saying we want them to be uncomfortable. I just want to clarify so we don't get letters.
Yes,
I'm not talking about making them be in pain or lose hearing, but just enough for them to experience what other people are experiencing.
Absolutely.
Not causing any harm to them. Just
definitely.
To throw that in.
So just sort of they get the idea that their volume is disturbing to other people, which is why we want to reduce it.
Absolutely. Okay.
And also, by the way, check their hearing. Like if they're not getting the message, that you might want to check and make sure their hearing is intact.
There you go. Okay, we've just got a couple of minutes here. So I want to deal with my 8-year-old high-functioning son loves to spin. He says he loves watching everything in the room move really fast, and says he doesn't really get dizzy. How can he get the same input during the day? His 504 allows for movement breaks, but there is only a trampoline, mat, and weighted blanket. Thank you.
Yeah, you would have to buy him a swing. The spinning is done with swings oftentimes, and if he has an aid, which I assume there will be someone there, they would just turn the swing and then he spins back. But I wouldn't do too much of this either. I mean, I would reserve this as a reinforcer, or as something that can help calm him perhaps when he needs it, or stimulate him when he needs it.
Do you remember when they used to do, they called it the astronaut training program, and that they would do with the very small kids? OTs were really into it. And basically you got 2 pieces of board and you put a Lazy Susan between them, and you could spin them on that. And there was a very specific protocol where
Actually, you just made me realize something else. Go ahead.
Okay, so first they would sit up, and look it up online. First they would sit up and you'd spin them like 20 times one direction, then 20 times the other direction. And then they'd lay down on their left side and you'd spin them 20 times and spin them the other way. And then there were like 6 different positions. And again, we couldn't at first afford the Lazy Susan, so we did it in an office chair.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a great idea.
I'm like the cheap way of doing everything.
There
So we
you
did
go.
it. We did it in the office chair, and because when he was little, what it did was it stimulated a part of his brain, and he spoke better afterwards. But then we weaned off of it. It's not like he still spins and does
I love that. That's amazing. There's also these very cool, now that you're talking about, they're for exercising your waist. They're like a circular thing,
and you do
stand on it, right?
the
And
Lori
if you
Grenier
actually
from the Shark
stand
Tank.
on there, you can go around really, really fast.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
I love those. I need one of those for my office. You do the thing. Okay. Nobody needed to see me do that. But it's good for you.
Yeah, these are awesome for that. What a good idea.
Wow.
But and also I think you can look up the astronaut training program or for autism. I think it's online.
Your OT should have the equipment to do that with him at school for breaks. That should be a thing that and you can request that they get that equipment. But everybody has an office chair, I'm just saying, at school, not everybody. Okay, last question that I think we're going to have time for. My son is 4-year-old who is autistic. He is frightened of some signs and writings, even TV ads. Since 2 days ago, he is scared of the TV downstairs and won't go down at all. Is there any way to overcome his fears? Thanks.
Yeah. So there's overcoming fear is done through a procedure called systematic desensitization, and I'm not sure I think we've done shows on this before, so hopefully we have something up on that you can look. But first thing I would do is I would find out if it's the visual or the auditory that's scaring him. So most of the time our kids are not scared by visual input, which is why I think the TV is a little weird. But it could be, since you've also seen him be afraid of signs and writings. But figure out if it's visual or it's auditory, which basically means, like, is he still scared of the TV if there's no volume? Okay, for example. And then it's a matter of, once you've identified the stimulus, you will break it down to the least, let's say I'm afraid of TVs. Watching a TV would be the number 10, the most scary thing. Like looking at a small screen like this would be probably the least scary, or maybe a picture of a TV would be the least scary, whatever it is. And you make like 20 things in between, and you acclimate the individual to the least scary thing. So let's say a picture of the TV, and you teach them how to relax and like handle it and all that, no problem. The next thing would be, let's say, walking past the TV or walking past the screen. And you gradually acclimate the person to the actual TV, and then you increase the duration of time. Then what I just kind of in 1 minute, 30 seconds described systematic desensitization. It's a much larger procedure, so you should read up on it or look at one of our programs where we've talked about it.
Wonderful.
But it's entirely possible to get over any kind of fear, so don't worry about that. I know our time is out, but there's this one question here that I saw that says, what is the reason why my little sister has autism? And I couldn't let that one go.
Okay.
So I don't if this person, if you're watching this show, we sometimes don't be afraid and don't worry that your little sister has autism. Autism is just a different way of experiencing the world, and it's like her brain probably works a little bit differently than yours does. So she probably has a little bit harder time understanding language, and so because of that, it'll be hard for her to learn things the way that we normally teach them. but a lot of people with autism have other skills that are different and much cooler, and they actually kind of figure out how to, with help, with good therapy, ABA is the type of therapy, they will learn how to live pretty well in our environment, in our world, but then they can also kind of do really cool things with their other skills that we often don't have. So sometimes they have amazing artistic abilities. So maybe your little sister will actually be really good at like painting or drawing or music, or maybe she'll have a really good memory or other things. So it's just a different thing. So don't let it scare you. You can still play with her and, you know, do all the different things, and she'll just need a little bit more time to figure out how to understand language.
One of the films we particularly loved this weekend, that was a short and it won for Best Short at Autfest, was a film called Sisterly. And it was made by an older sister about her younger sister and some of the fears that she had about communicating with her sister, and how three sisters sort of have gotten to a place of understanding and working that out. I think that parents, you know, screen it. It's a short, you know, maybe 8-minute long film, and see if it's something that's appropriate for the children in your life to see, because it's from the point of view of a sibling, and it was very moving. And I got to meet the sister, the filmmaker. We're going to try to have her on the show to talk about it. It was a really lovely, lovely film. And as I said, won awards. So we are out of time, but I just want to say that the Mom About Hypnosis wrote back and said she was just wondering if there's any data, if your clients have done it. She says that, she said, I understand each child is different, but your opinion counts a lot, all in caps.
Thank you very much.
So
I don't know, I don't think I know anyone who has used hypnosis for within the spectrum and whether it has helped. Generally, hypnosis can be very helpful. You have to be pretty imaginative, and again, you have to have a high suggestibility factor.
And she says they heard about another parent who used it to help boost self-confidence, and so that's a thing.
Good.
But there are other things for self-confidence too, and so
absolutely,
you know, that's what you're looking for. But I have to let you go,
okay? Or
they'll come in with a hook and they'll get mad at me. So we want to thank you for your time. As always, it's so amazing to have you here. We're going to take a break, and then I'm going to be back for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. My guests today are Vince Redmond. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and then we are going to have Debbie Major, from Xylophone. And so we're looking forward to talking with her about how autism in a music program can really light things on fire. Plus, I've got a bunch of in the news, and we're going to recap a little bit of Autfest. So stick with us.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Hi, Jessica.
Jessica's daddy.
That's right. Who's this? Who's this?
Bobby.
And who's that?
Daddy.
Who's that? Over there? Who's that? Good. And I totally think he's just aware of a lot of things now. People's names. How's the behavior team going with the inflexibilities?
He's still a big control guy. He still wants it the way he wants it.
In sessions, he was very, he'd get very upset.
And he gets upset fast, like for reasons that didn't used to upset him. He gets upset fast, and then once he's upset, everything upsets him.
Were they really long?
But it was a good half hour, the whole tantrum, which is long for him. Really long.
Yeah.
And he would just get so upset.
Yeah, everyone tells us, you know, it's not unexpected. He's 3 and blah, 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 but
so we get it, we know it.
Still, it's harsh. Yeah, he's 3, but he's our 3-year-old.
Tell me a vehicle.
Good
Good job. Tell me another vehicle.
Airplane
is a vehicle. Yay. Okay, 2 more. Okay. Tell me a food.
I can't eat food.
Pancake is a food.
Yeah.
Tell me another food. Tell me another one.
Food.
Yeah. Cereal bar
is a food. Yeah.
I thought he said zebra. Hey, Jack Riley.
Yes.
Good job. Tell me an animal.
Is it a boat?
What's that?
Tell me one more time. What's the animal?
What's an Artemis is an apple? What's Artemis is an
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. Oh, okay, it's an animal. Tell me another animal.
What's Artemis is an
I
apple?
know. Tell me another one. Look at your shoes. What animal is that?
Froggy.
Froggy is a what? No, frog is a
Arrow.
good. So tell me another animal.
What's Artemis is an apple?
Rhinoceros is an animal, and tell me another one.
More pancake.
No, look at me. No, no, look at me.
Why is an apple?
There you go. Thank you. Pancakes are not animals, silly.
There's a clue from it.
More pancake.
Yeah, and I don't mind if he looks around to like get clues, get hints. That's totally fine. Yes, I've been running sessions a little bit more like that lately, just because his behaviors have been really high. Just like if we're jumping on the bed or dancing, I'll stop for a minute and ask him like 3 or 4 questions, and then we'll just keep dancing or whatever we're doing. Let me probe through some stuff real quick.
What are you going to be probing?
Actions. So I just want to see if he already knows it, then I won't even bother introducing it. Give me kissing. Oh, good. What are the kids doing?
He's kissing.
Oh, they're kissing. Can you show me kissing? Oh, good job. Give me cleaning. Okay, good. What's the girl doing?
She's cleaning.
She's cleaning. Good job.
Water.
Okay, one more. Can I have it? One more. Give me crying. What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
What's she doing? What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
She's wah. She's crying.
She's crying.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll do crying.
He's kissing.
He's kissing. What about this one? What's she doing there?
She's cooking.
Oh, she's cooking. Okay. And what's this one? What's she doing?
She's crying.
Oh, okay. So basically, he knows all of them. All right, cool. All right. What are they doing?
She's studying.
They're what?
There's cooking.
Oh, they're cooking. Good job.
What's that cooking? What's that cooking?
Mom is cooking?
What's that cooking?
Lots of cooking? Oh, okay, cool. All right, all done. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod, and you will notice that I'm flying solo here today, that my good pal Nancy Allspaw Jackson is not with me. She's not with me for very good reasons, so that she can be with her oldest and dearest friend, Gina, that we all love. Gina is a huge supporter of the show, and Gina's husband, Bob, passed away on Friday, and we are just devastated on behalf of Gina. We want her to know that we're thinking of her, and we're so glad that Nancy is with her. This is a terrible, terrible loss, and honestly, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone. We are glad that Nancy's there, and we'll welcome her back when she comes back, but we will soldier on here without her. I know that's what both Nancy and Gina would want. We do have a big show for you today. In just a second here, we're welcoming Vince Redmond, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we're going to talk with him about what we can be doing right now to get ready for summer. I know that feels like a stress maker, but it's actually a stress reducer. And then a little bit later on in the hour, we are going to have Debbie Major from Xylophone, spelled with an F, not a PH. And we'll talk with her about the amazing music program that she's doing. But first of all, and then we will have some in the news to fill in, and we're going to do a recap of AuTFest. That's a lot in the next hour. But first, we're going to welcome Vince Redmond. He is an LMFT and a regular here on the show. For those of you who don't know, Vince has worked for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders for many years and started as a therapist. And now he's a big, important licensed marriage and family therapist. And he is the director of CARD Family Services, which is an amazing, amazing resource for families that are in this intervention and need help and support of different kinds. So Vince joins us about once a month to talk with us about a specific topic. Thank you for coming and joining us again, Vince.
Always a pleasure.
And you and I spoke a little bit briefly yesterday, and we said we were going to talk about summer. And I know for some people they're like, summer, it just, it's May 2nd. But you were pointing out that sometimes when we can get a little bit ahead of things, it can actually, before it gets stressful, that it can actually reduce it. So what kinds of things should we be thinking about right now?
Well, and I know you and I made a good point when we spoke yesterday about, how schedules sometimes are inconsistent during the summer because camps are at different times, and sometimes it's, in the afternoon, sometimes in the morning, and families have often, left their schedules as open as possible for ABA treatment, which is understandable as well. However, this is the time to really meet with the supervisor, meet with your ABA, supervisor, start talking about what the plans are. What do they see for summer? What types of events, activities, and things would you guys agree upon to do for the summer, as well as, what resources and things are within your area? This is the time to plan because schedules are now being made for the summer. Schedules are starting to work out for the summer. And this is the time where we can do this before that crunch time comes and all the schedules are already set. And then we try to look into getting them into, different activities, events, and camps, and so forth.
Yeah, I was really thinking about this last night, Vince, after we were talking about how there's a little bit of hopeful mind reading that goes on that isn't very productive. That the parents are thinking, oh, I hope we get a program that's this, this, and this. And the scheduler is like, oh, I'm hoping to get this child this much therapy during these hours, and I hope that the family is keeping themselves available for what I'm trying to do, and that just a little communication can make the likelihood that that success of getting what people want actually happens.
Absolutely. And like you and I spoke yesterday, I know for the kids that I still supervise, I've already started to talk to the families about what are the plans for the summer. What are they looking for the summer? Vacations, camps, different programs, those types of things. When would they like therapy? When can we, that kind of thing, because, their schedules are sometimes different, sometimes they're the same. And so the schedules might not change all too much from what we're doing now in the spring. But again, that communication now, and like you said earlier, while it kind of heightens our anxiety a little bit because we're already talking about summer and changes that are coming, when those changes actually come, we should be a lot less anxious and a lot more, knowledgeable of what we're going to do for the summer.
And just to clarify, because we talk a lot here about prioritizing your ABA hours, that doesn't mean that you can't do other things. It just means that if it comes down to, well, you can get therapy at this time, or you can take the Gymboree dance class, and you can't move the Gymboree dance class to another time, that you prioritize and do the ABA. But a lot of times if you plan ahead, you can say, well, we'd like to take this Gymboree dance class that only happens at this time. If that's the only time we can do therapy, we're not going to do it. But and then they can fit the puzzle pieces around, or they can say that's not going to conflict and go ahead and sign up for the Gymboree dance class.
Right. It's a lot easier to do it now. And like you're saying, moving those puzzle pieces around before the schedules are completed and finished, right? Because we can mark that time off and then look at another time, either morning, afternoon, another day, those kind of things to fulfill the ABA hours. It becomes much more difficult when the schedules are complete because they're complete for everyone. And as we know, that's a tapestry of therapists that are woven in and out of all different cases throughout the center. So to make a change at that point, now we're just not only disrupting their schedule, possibly many other family schedules as well. So if we do this in the beginning, we're able to have the best of both worlds, oftentimes where they're able to do those extracurricular events as well as not jeopardize their ABA treatments at all.
Absolutely. Now the asterisk also here is though that a lot of this, we don't want to send a message that parents can go and get their schedule locked and loaded right now, because a lot of places are getting the availability from the therapists because their schedules change in the summer too. Some of them have summer classes, some of them take vacation, some of them, are moving, doing whatever. So just know that you're starting the conversation right now, but not having an expectation that somebody is going to be able to give you a, yes, this is what it will be right now, because it's all contingent on when the therapists are available. Is that right, Vince?
No, very, very true. But the other thing is what we're looking at now is actually just starting to think of what are the options for the summer. What are some of the things we want them to do for the summer? We've spent our time so far talking about the scheduling of it, but it's also just as important just to look and see what do we want to do for the summer. Is it a swim class? Is it, like you're saying, Gymboree? Is it, maybe it's just a vacation. Maybe it's just, hey, we're going to be gone for this week. And so that we're able to talk to this, to the staff on how we can rearrange schedules so that your child doesn't lose any treatment, so that they're still able to maintain their level of treatment even with that, the summer vacation in between, and then aid support. Maybe they want to do a camp. Well, is aid support allowed? Can we provide aid support there? What's the need? So all of these things are great to work on now, so that when we're ready, June, whatever it is, 1st or June the 15th or whatever the date is in your office, there's already a skeleton of a plan in place. Now it's just a matter of making that happen.
Right. And I like to always think, because I'm a former teacher, and we will start talking very soon here on the show about the Great Summer Slide. And this is not just about kids that are on the autism spectrum. In fact, quite to the contrary, teachers talk about the summer slide because it's what happens from the last day of school to the first day of school. Neurotypical kids will lose some of what they learned if it's not maintained over the summer. And this is horrifying to a teacher. We hate summer slide, but I will tell you from an autism parent's perspective, it's something that you go, well, if the rest of the kids are going to slide back a little bit and my kid is making a whole lot more progress, we're going to get closer to caught up. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
And it can be a very exciting thing for an autism parent of like, okay, maybe my child is in 5th grade, but their reading is at a 3rd grade level. And now they're going into 6th grade. So what can I do during the summer? And I think that's really how you got to look at it. Where are the gaps? Where is my child the most behind, or what can my child most benefit from? And then see what's available. And there's lots of options, aren't there, Vince?
Oh, there's tons of options. Lots of different, activities that they can get into socially. There's academic activities they can get into. We can even create schedules at home for things that they can work on outside of treatment, right? I think one of the biggest anxieties that I see with families going through the summer is there's a lot more unstructured time than what happens when children in school. Right? They're home for that extra 30. If they're not going to ESY school, they're home for another 30 hours or so a week. So how do we fill that time? And some of it is we should fill that time with structured time, either it be working on their writing, working on their math, working on their reading, working on their, task taking, doing different academic worksheets and those types of things. That can be structured into their summer schedule so that they don't have that summer slide, that they are able to maintain the skills that they've learned, but also in treatment, they're going to continue to gain skills as well.
Yeah, and right about now, this time of year, often schools will have some sort of open house or exhibit night or something like that. And one of my favorite things, and I think you were the one who taught me how to do this, Vince, is go to your child's open house and see all the wonderful work that they do, but then walk over to the classrooms for next year's classes. and meet the teachers and ask them, what are you working on next year, so that you can gauge, okay, you know, he or she isn't good at that. Gives you an idea of the kinds of things. So in the last hour, a parent had written in and talked about having an issue with money. When they were teaching her child money, that there was a problem with that. And I remember them telling us in the summer before, we're going to be doing money skills. And so we were able to go back to our card team and say, he's going to have to know money. And they worked on it all summer. So by the time we got to money skills, he had it all under, he was aces, because he had been prepped by the team. And we also asked the team, and they said, here are some things you can work on when we're not here, whatever it is, when money or otherwise.
Planning like that is fantastic. Just to know what, you know, where they're going to be at the beginning of the school year. What are some of the tasks that they're going to be working on? It'd be money, it'd be cursive writing, it'd be, you know, reading nonfiction books, what have you, so that you can see where your individual child is with those skills. Now, if they're already doing well with them and you can maintain them over the summer, fantastic. If it's something that we need to prep for, you can work with your ABA team to prep for it so that they're aware of it. But the other good thing about doing that at open house is it's introducing you to the teachers and, you know, talking about expectations and some of the accommodations that might be able to be done, so that the collaboration, the academic collaboration, can already begin even before the year starts.
Yeah, I hate it when I see parents begin to stress about this extra time. Because I think we need to flip that equation and think of it as a gift. But if we aren't prepared for it, if we don't have a plan, it's that whole thing, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And that it can be, summer can be a time where you could enjoy yourself and get a lot accomplished. But let's talk about the enjoy yourself, because how do we tell parents, Vince, and this is something that always plagues me, how do you explain to a parent who doesn't have a teaching background how to take a summer activity like going to the beach, actually have fun, and take some of the lessons that you've been doing in a session and use them at the beach without the kid knowing? I see parents who are like, that's like a magic act. How do you do that? We know therapists know how to do that. Teachers tend to know how to do that. But how do we explain that to a parent who doesn't have that kind of background?
And I think you make sure it's part of the plan, right? And that's a very good point. I mean, part of the parent meetings and parent collaborations that occur on a monthly basis with the supervisor can talk about these things. You can plan for these things. So, for example, you're planning for the beach, right? You got to get your suntan lotion in your bathing suits and your chairs and your towels and so forth. But part of that plan should be, what are we going to do while we're there, right? It's not just go play in the sand castles and play in the water. It could be labeling. It could be asking for things. It could be just following basic commands, especially safety commands when you're out in public, right? Come here and don't go that far, and you know, those types of things. Wait, you know, it's very important to work on, waiting and safety compliance, in those things, so that you have your mindset around what are the things, the tasks work on. Again, you're not going to work on a lot of things. It's vacation, it's fun, you're going to the beach, but there are a lot of things that you can do to generalize. And this is a good discussion to have with the supervisor prior to going on these types of trips, because they can really, more individualized with your child's program, and talk about the certain things that you can really generalize while you're there.
And what I'm getting overall is that not only do you have to start to plan and think about what you want to accomplish, but the communication is the cornerstone of all this, that then you need to communicate that to your team, to the people who are scheduling your therapy, and help them by giving them the information so that they can help you to plan. That's really what I'm hearing, Vince.
Absolutely. Again, it's the community, right?
Yes.
We're all there together to make sure that these types of things are not only successful, but can be fantastic learning opportunities for the kids.
Yeah.
Incidental learning is extremely important, right? Being able to generalize and use those skills that they've taught and they've learned in a therapeutic setting to be able to actually apply it in the real world when they need it, is fantastic. It's not only good for the child, of course, but it's good for the parents because they see what the effect, they see the success, they see a skill that the child now is growing into their own repertoire.
And this summer, I think you and I are going on a trip to Washington, D.C., if I'm not mistaken, for the Autism Society of America conference. And so that will be very fun. And I know I usually travel and take my son with me because I believe in what was done to me, that somebody, I can talk to a parent forever and tell them, look, you need ABA for your child, but then and I will, and then I go, and here's my son. And that gets it done much faster. But I love to have my son with me, and I'm looking forward to going to Washington, D.C. and taking at least one day and turning it into an educational trip, talking about our government and visiting the buildings, because everything is educational. Every single moment of every single day is educational to all of us. I love to make it fun and interactive, and I'm not somebody who does a tour with a bus guide who says, look here. But that's my teacher training background, that when he was little, I would say, how many blue things can we count? So we'd work on, discerning what's blue and counting, and, everything can be a lesson every single moment. So, or, now we'll look at social skills when we people watch and go, we'll watch a couple having coffee together, and we'll try to, just from what their physicality is, decide, are they friends? Are these people that are in love? Are these people that are angry at each other? Just from watching what their bodies are doing. Any moment, anywhere can be educational.
Right.
And it can be fun. It can be a very good time. Anyway, Vince, I know I got to let you go. I know you got things to go and do, but we appreciate you so much. You are such a wealth of knowledge. For people who are CARD clients and want to know more about CARD Family Services, where do they go to get to touch points with that?
They can reach out to their family support experts in their office. Most offices now have a family support expert, or they can always email me directly if there's any questions.
And you also have a Facebook page that is just for CARD Family Services, for CARD parents.
Yes, we do. It's CARD Parent. You would look under CARD Parents, and it would come up, and it's just for CARD parents. And you have to be invited into the group so that it stays inclusive to our families. And it's a good way to not only pick up on information, but if there's ever a question, to reach out to other CARD families. It's a good way of doing that as well.
It's a fabulous thing. We appreciate you so much. So we'll see you next month.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, thanks, Vince.
All right,
bye-bye. You too. Bye-bye. That was the fabulous Vince Redmond, the director of CARD Family Services. We are going to take a break. I'm looking at the time, and then we are going to be back with Debbie Major from Xylophone. We've got a lot more show left. Stick with us. We're very excited because we're in the Noah's Ark exhibit, and we're here with Jason Porter. Thank you for taking us on this tour.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So you're going to show me around a little bit and show me some of the secrets of the Noah's Ark exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Cool, let's go. Yeah. So Jason, tell us, this is an amazing space. Why is it so incredible for children?
One of the values of the Skirball Cultural Center is taking care of the earth and one another, and so this idea of repurposing materials that would otherwise be tossed off was a big component to how we design the galleries. It's based on, certainly the story that everyone knows is the one from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Noah. But in our research, we looked at over 200 flood stories from around the world, and many different cultures have flood stories that have similarities, and the similarities that we identified were these 3 chapters: the storm, some crazy challenge that comes to your life; an ark, a kind of means of survival, a way for a community to come together to survive; and finally the rainbow, which is this kind of symbol of hope, the second chance to make the world anew.
Love it. All right, let's take a look through, and we're going to talk about some of the learning opportunities that are available here.
We really wanted people to kind of discover what they were supposed to do. For example, this elephant has a gong in the center, and there's a little wheel here that you can turn and see what happens. But there's also some hidden things, like there's a little peephole in this polar bear, so it's kind of a moment where you could talk with your kids about what does it mean that that polar bear in there only has a small piece of ice to live on it, and you could talk about kind of the environmental issues that might be associated with it.
All right, should we go downstairs?
Yeah, let's check out the storm.
So Jason, what do you call this room?
This is called the Storm Gallery. In one side of the gallery, we have a storm wall, which is all sorts of sounds and sight effects to make the storm come to life. But we have this, what we call the load up. It's fairly intuitive. You know, you put animals onto the conveyor belt and you turn the wheel and they get loaded up onto the ark. Except you can't do both at the same time by yourself. It's kind of layered in the doing, the learning that we're really interested in, which is about this notion of working together in order to accomplish something. So, you know, when you first get on the ark, obviously you enter 2 by 2 as the story goes. And so the animals in this first section of the ark, you know, they're not quite sure where they should be. They're a little bit nervous about who to hang out with. The gallery is really organized so that the animals are still in pairs. So we talk a lot about what are the elements of home that you need to survive. And it's really a nice kind of intro into the whole experience of being in a community, learning to be together with people who may or may not be the same as us. This gallery of Noah's Ark is unique, I think, in terms of the way that it was designed, that it offers a huge variety of experiences in a way that really accommodates people of all stripes and spots. So there are more quiet zones, like we just left in the move-in day, where you can come into this room where you have a lot of large motor things that are happening, including climbing, and we kind of have nicknamed this the arcade. It's kind of the chapter in the story where they're making new families and they're mixing with other animals that they've befriended. Oh, we have to talk about poop.
We can't do a show without talking about poop.
So, you know, the other fact of life on an ark is that everybody poops. So the challenge is to, you know, clean up.
Okay, so we're in the last room, very cool room. What do we call this room?
We call this the Rainbow Gallery. You know, people really get that this is a place of hope. Sometimes there's an art-making project, that it ends in some sort of inspiration, that people feel like they're inspired to take action in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much for showing us everything and telling us about all the wonderful things at the Skirball Center.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have joining us via Skype Debbie Major from Xylophone. Debbie, are you there?
I am.
How wonderful to have you with us. Well, thank you and welcome. So let's start with you. We just saw the logo and it's behind your head right now, but it's xylophone with an F, not a PH. We need to know why this spelling change. I'm thinking there's a reason.
So I decided to spell it differently because I felt like it was important that the population that I serve would be able to say it. And there are also 8 notes in the word xylophone now, and I'm a musician, and that's considered a scale.
Okay, I like that. So for people who don't know, tell us the brief, what is xylophone?
Xylophone is a performing arts center for people that have a special need, all ages, all kinds of disabilities, and we also are an inclusion program. So we bring children that are typical, adults that are typical, and we share the whole experience of music and theater, dance, art, everything.
Wonderful. And so array of services that you offer. Are you in your own space or do you go to other spaces?
That's a great question also. This is my space right now that I'm in. This is our studio, but we are in other programs, senior programs, day hub programs. We do theater and other programs, and anywhere they need us.
Remarkable. So this is a very unique program. Explain to us what makes xylophone so unique.
I don't think that there are programs that are really specialized like this for somebody that has a disability. I started this for my children. They're both disabled. They're twins. They're 27 now. And my son Gage, who loves to act and loves to sing, when he graduated from high school, asked me if he could go to a program or a college where he could become an actor. And he has cerebral palsy and autism. And I knew deep in my heart there was probably no place that I could send him. So I created this organization for my kids.
I got to be honest, some of the things I like best in life are things that come about because a person, often a mom or a dad, is behind the 8 ball and their kid needs something and they go, I guess if it doesn't exist, I guess I'm gonna have to create it. And it makes some of the best things that are in the world. So I love that that's what this space comes out of. And since we're talking about family, if we have kiddos or individuals or teenagers, and what is the age range of who comes to you? What is the age range?
Oh gosh, we have preschoolers all the way to folks in their 90s that are in senior facilities that have Alzheimer's and dementia and can't move too well. So we bring music and movement to them. And we bring in babies and preschoolers to come in and do music and movement in our workshops here.
And I know a lot of families that they have multiple kids, some of them on the spectrum or some of them with a different special need and some that are neurotypical. Is this the kind of program where if they've got one kiddo who's special needs, but they've got another who isn't, can both siblings come?
Absolutely. We actually encourage siblings, parents, typical, non-typical, and we have workshops that are full of, multi-disabled people that some cannot move, some can't speak, some are very high functioning. And we blend it. I think we do a really nice job of blending everybody's sweet spot. I think everybody has a very magical part about them. And I think it's important to draw that out. So whenever we can do that, I think that's our main goal. Because I think everybody wants to have that voice, whether it's through painting or dancing or singing or acting. I think everybody wants to have that spotlight. If you are a musician or into the performing arts, not everybody is, some other people are into history or whatever, but there's a certain draw of people that definitely want to come here.
Well, and we were talking in the last hour about building self-esteem, and we know the statistics are there for us that when our kiddos get to engage in the arts, that it is helpful with self-esteem, as long as it's a good art program, which obviously you are running an amazing program. And you are located in Montgomery, New York. Where is that?
That's a great question. We're about 60 miles north of Manhattan.
Okay.
in the Hudson Valley region. It's a beautiful area up here, and
So are you in the Poughkeepsie area?
It's across the river from Poughkeepsie.
Okay, all right, I'm getting a beat on where you are. Okay, and right now that's where you're based and that's what you're doing. What's your long-term vision, Debbie? What's the 10-year picture for Xylophone?
This is my dream, is to have a building, an organic building where there are 8 rooms in it that have a color of the xylophone. Each room has its own color. It's a plug-and-play facility, very magical, very interactive. So when you come in, you can decide what you want to do. I think part of the challenge with folks that have a disability is that they don't have a lot of choices. They're told, you know, when they're going to therapy, when they're going to school, what to wear, and a lot of times people have to dress them. So I really like the idea of a facility or a place that's very magical, that is easily accessible to whatever you want to do. If you want to come in and record, if you want to learn to play an instrument, if you want to do yoga or dance or make scenery or be involved in a choir, or you want to be in an acting group, or anything that you have in your mind to do, that we set the room up for you. Whether it's, and for me, the sensory component is really important because most of my children have autism, and I think it's important to regard what that sensory issue might be. So if you like the color of the room to be a certain color, or you like the temperature a certain way, or you may want a lot of sensory things to use while you're in your session, I want to have all that available.
And can I tell you something? That's going to happen. I know it is. It's going to happen. And you know how I know that? Because it's so clear and specific in your mind. In your mind, it exists. And so now it's just a matter of, now it's just a matter of getting the, the actual, physical things there, but it already exists. And so I know that it will. I know that it will. But that's because of your vision and because you keep plugging on it. I love a mom who is motivated.
Thank you.
I always say MOM stands for Mom on a Mission. So that's who you are. So, okay, for people who are in the Montgomery area and want to participate and want to bring their kids and have them working with you now, what do they need to do, Debbie?
So they can go on our website, which is xylophone.org. We are a nonprofit, 501c3. It is spelled ZYLOFONE.org. They can also go to our Facebook page, where we always have a multitude of things displayed all the time. They can also call us at 845-476-8257. And somebody's always available. So come on by and check out our place. It's very magical here.
I love it. And if somebody who is watching who wants to contribute to help you to have that be a reality, same thing, they can go to xylophone with an F.org to participate. And if there's somebody who wants to have a xylophone where they are you at all interested in helping people to set up satellite xylophones?
I think it's important that every community should have a xylophone. Every town or every county should have a xylophone in it. It's important that we regard the creativity of every person and that there's a place for them, for everybody. This should be a place that's like a no-brainer.
Well, you are an awesome MOM, and I want to thank you for being with us and talking about xylophone, and encourage people to go to xylophone.org to find out more. Thank you so much, Debbie.
It's time to talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with some In the News. You may or may not see the top of my head fly off. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Johansson, and this is My Little House.
My Little House is an interactive, multi-sensory educational felt toy that I invented. to help develop children's language skills.
I love my little house.
I've been working as a speech therapist for over 20 years. I have spent my entire career working with young children. I work with children with language delays, and I have many children with significant cognitive disabilities and children on the autism spectrum. It has been a constant challenge finding toys that are fun, educational, and actually engage my students. In every preschool, since I've been a young therapist, we carry on these felt boards. Kids love them because they're soft and they're fluffy, and there's usually these little pieces that attach to these boards because felt sticks onto felt. You bring them into the activity because they're putting a piece on the board. So it's almost kind of like magic. So then I just thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just take this one-dimensional board and make it into an actual three-dimensional toy? How cool would that be?
That's the idea behind My Little House. You can spread it out flat like a 4-panel felt board, or here's the cool part. In the blink of an eye, My Little House easily converts into a 3-dimensional reversible house.
This is the outside. This is the inside.
My Little House comes with 36 felt cutout pieces that match outlines in 8 colorful rooms. And they're felt, so they stick. Each piece inside My Little House has been placed with purpose.
For instance, in the kitchen, whole, half, under, on top, inside, big, bigger, and biggest, empty and full, circle, triangle, inside, outside.
Really cool thing, I have a nonprofit, Lecotech. They are the folks that put out the Differently Abled Guide for Toys R Us. They've been doing it for 25 years. They gave me their seal of approval as a toy that they feel is a toy with purpose, and that will make a difference. But My Little House isn't just for kids on the spectrum or with significant disorders. It's also for typically developing 2 to 5-year-olds. It's a fun toy.
This is so soft. That piece goes.
Recently, I took My Little House to the American Speech and Hearing Association convention in Philadelphia, and the response from my peers was overwhelming. Hundreds of therapists, teachers, and heads of school districts wanted to order them.
It was real validation for me that this truly is a toy that needs to get out there.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm a proud autism mom, I'm a former educator, and I am the host of Autism Live. And as all 3 of those things, I want to recommend to you My Little House. This is one of the smartest toys I have ever seen for teaching language to kids who have emerging language. Whether they're on the autism spectrum or completely neurotypical, it's a great, fun, reinforcing toy, but it's especially great for our kids that are on the autism spectrum because it makes learning fun and it makes it tactile. They have these felt shapes and they get to match them up. And I'm telling you, even the adults love to play with this. We loved this toy so much that we wanted to be able to bring it to you at a great discount. So right now, if you will go to www.smartfelttoys, and when you get to the coupon code, put in a-live.com, you'll get $5 off. Isn't that great? So I want to encourage you, go and get My Little House for all the kiddos in your life. Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for In the News. And, okay, where do I start? I want to say a disclaimer at the beginning that there is a group of very important people to me that are known as self-advocates. And self-advocates are individuals who are on the autism spectrum. And in most cases, they are teenagers or adults because, unfortunately, younger people on the autism spectrum often, by the very nature of the disability, aren't able to advocate for themselves. And when they can't, their parents advocate for them. At least we hope that's the case. That's what I hope to do as a parent. My son is almost 15, and I still advocate for him, but I advocate less and less because I allow him to advocate for himself. I want him to grow up to be able to do that, and I'm very lucky that my son can. I'm very lucky that my son can. And my son can advocate for himself because of early intervention that we got because other people had advocated for their kids and because I advocated for him and my husband advocated for him. So I want to be very clear that I can't think of a group on this planet that is more important to me than self-advocates and hearing them out and having them, of course, have a right to speak whatever their truth is, and I want to hear it. I'm not going to say that I always like it, and I'm not going to say that I always agree with it, right? Because I don't agree with what carte blanche with what any one group or person says. That's the nature of life, right? But I will literally die behind the idea that they have the right to speak whatever their truth is. Okay, having said that, that's the ground rules for the discussion that we're about to have. We know that the new CDC prevalence numbers came out last week, and the new numbers are 1 in 59. And we've all had an opportunity to have our emotions about it and, you know, to read the report and see the nuances of it. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with CDC prevalence numbers, let me just say that the very way that they measure them, when you understand it, you go, I don't think that's really indicative maybe of what's happening, right? But it is the way that they have been doing it, and we need to judge apples to apples to apples, not suddenly change the formula and judge apples to oranges. But the CDC only comes out with these numbers every 2 years, and what they look at are the number of 8-year-olds from a significant portion earlier. So we're really looking back in time and saying that the number of 8-year-olds that have autism during a specific year that is not this year is this. That's what we're looking at. It's not about how many kids are on the spectrum. We're just looking at 8-year-olds. And we're not looking at 8-year-olds in 2018. In fact, I think we're looking at 8-year-olds in 2014, which is when the last numbers came out. Okay, so you purely are looking and saying, if we're looking at the same criteria, what is the difference? Well, since 2007, we have seen a jump of 1 in 50 to 1 in 59. If you want to go back further in time, when I was at Autfest the other night, Matt Asner was talking about when his brother was diagnosed that it was 1 in 10,000 children. Just 20 years ago. So, you know, we're seeing an increase. And it is maddening to me when people carte blanche poo-poo this and say it's just better diagnosis. I'm referring to an article that's in Vox this week that is written by one of the most prolific self-advocates and one of the co-founders of the Self-Advocate Network. And again, I encourage him to have the loudest mouthpiece that he can have and speak his truth and speak his opinion. I'm going to use mine here. And say that this article, and I encourage you all to go and read it and support him in his efforts and stating his opinion, but see if it makes sense to you that he says the numbers are, he says, the title of it is CDC just announced 1 in 59 children are autistic. Here's why that's not evidence of an epidemic. Now, I thought that and I thought, oh, okay, so are we going to hear about the definition of the word epidemic? Because we had a little discussion here a couple of weeks ago about the actual definition of epidemic, which autism would not apply because autism is not contagious. And nobody is arguing that it's contagious, right? So it does not apply for the term epidemic, but you can say that we are seeing an epidemic-like rise in autism. And anybody who denies that, I just don't, honestly, that to me feels like denial. And then he goes on to say the subtitle is, especially within minority groups, parents and doctors are getting better at identifying the condition. And this really is the thing that the CDC really brought home in their report. They're like, look at this. we're seeing an increase. How's this for salesmanship? We're seeing an increase in the number of diagnoses from individuals who are from the Latino community and from the African American community. So see, we're getting better at diagnosing it. Let's all pat ourselves on the back, because probably this whole time, those kids were there and had it anyway, and now we're just diagnosing it better. So really we're saying that all along, even when it was 1 in 10,000, it was really 1 in 59. Although not really, because we're saying it's still not even. And we're seeing more girls on the spectrum. Eventually, what? Eventually, we're going to get to the point where there are the exact number of people who are Latino who are diagnosed as are Caucasian. And then we'll go, oh, now we've got the numbers. And it was this way at the turn of the century. Really? Is that really honestly what you believe? I mean, I do believe that diagnosis has gotten better. I absolutely do. But you really believe that there are that many people, because these children that are being diagnosed, you have to realize that there are a high percentage of them that when they're being diagnosed are nonverbal. They're not staying nonverbal. And are you really saying that it's just, are you suggesting that all the people that were there before that had it that weren't diagnosed, they were all really high functioning? And that now we're having more people who are not as high functioning? I don't get it. I really don't get where this denial comes from. But I think reading this article, one of the things that he explains is that likely autism is somewhere between 1 to 3% of the population. Okay. I think that would be shocking to a lot of people. I don't think that very many people have thought in terms of 1 to 3 as we are now approaching the 2% mark. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And his argument is you got to stop saying that it's an epidemic, because somehow that equals a vaccine discussion. And this is where he loses me entirely. Why does that necessarily follow? To me, it does not. We can be having a rise in autism without it being something to, the first time I'm seeing somebody equate this to vaccines is his article. Just saying. Why is that the discussion? Is it not possible that there could be a rise in autism and have it be something else? Is that not a possibility? I think this saying, no, it's just been this way forever, and denying the numbers, to me, that's really scary. But his point is, he says, and if the rate of autism has long been stable, that it's always been 1 to 3%, the 1 in 10,000 number, because people were really misdiagnosing. He says, if the rate of autism has long been stable, policymakers and funders should rethink the public response to autism. Well, I agree with you there. He goes on to say, if rates are increasing, it follows that there are fewer autistic adults relative to the number of children. So he's saying there are less adults and there are more children if it's increasing. And if it's not increasing, if it's long been stable, then there are more adults, and so more services should go towards adults. And that's, I think, where we've hit it, because adults have long not had the resources that kids have had. That is the truth. And I agree with that, and I think that there needs to be more support for adults. But you see the argument here, I think we're fighting against each other. And he takes on autism groups in a way that I take issue with. I take issue with. Read it, see what you guys think. But if that's the argument, perhaps you would get more traction if you would say, well, if we're saying that 1 in 59 children are on the autism spectrum, guess what's going to happen to those children? They grow into adults. So let's get the adult services in place right now. We both want the same thing. It's just that we're arguing about it in different ways. And you go through here to give lots of examples of why you don't think that the autism number is rising, but I really take issue with this idea that now suddenly there's better diagnosis for individuals who are on in these underserved populations, and so we're solving this. What if there are even more that aren't being diagnosed? What if the actual truth is that there is a higher prevalence among the African American population and the Latino population because there's reason to suspect that there might be? What if that is the truth? Then that skews your whole number. And the truth is that nobody knows. Nobody knows. And to suggest that we do, I think is disappointing. So in any case, that's from Vox, and I want to encourage you to read it. And on a happier note, in Science Daily, you guys can read in Science Daily, the EEG signals accurately predict autism as early as 3 months. An EEG, which is not in any way invasive or painful, that they can take 3-month-old babies, and they've been able to take a control group and a group of kids who were more likely to be on the spectrum because they have a sibling, and we know statistically they are more likely if they have a sibling, and that I should have had you do this diagram, Samantha. Very clear. They were able to look at the EEGs and very successfully at 3 months predict which kids were going to have ASD, which kids were at high risk and service should be started anyway to mitigate, and which were at low risk and less likely. This is fascinating stuff. This is powerful. This is something that can really help us. Want you to check that out. It came from Boston Children's Hospital. We are so very out of time, but I want to say that tomorrow we've got this amazing show for you. We believe that we're going to have Hank Moore here with us on the show, and if you know Hank, you know that I think he's a rock star, and so we hope that we're having him here on the show with us. We are going to recap and even show you some of the clips with Kobe Bird, but they're on our YouTube, you guys. Kobe Bird was on the red carpet with the casts of Atypical and The Good Doctor. It's smoking fabulous. There are shorter clips where you can just watch that are shorter, and then there's the long, raw footage that's there on Facebook. You guys can watch it right now. It won't stay up on Facebook for very long. So there's that we're going to cover tomorrow. Plus, we have Bonnie Yates here. She's going to answer your questions. And we've got George Steeves. He is a very talented actor on the spectrum, has a one-man show right now called The Magic 8 Ball, and we're excited to talk to him about that. I also have a one-woman show that's opening, at the Halloween Fringe on May 31st. If you want tickets, it's half sold out, even as we speak. Half of it is sold out, and the tickets just opened yesterday. So if you're going to be in the LA area, go to Hollywood Fringe. The name of the show is Autism Monologues, and get your tickets now because this time next week, I don't think there are going to be any left. And isn't that exciting? We're going to be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.